so it's my turn to talk about our favorite employee, Bitmoji. If you know Sherry, you know that she loves her some Bitmojis. So I'm very entertained by these Sherry's Bitmojis. So this is the I don't give a flying fig veteran teacher who just doesn't really care. So you've inherited Sherry. She's a 37-year veteran. She's also the state championship softball coach, so she feels pretty entitled to be in the district. After 16-17, she quote unquote resigned from coaching. This makes me crazy. Teachers don't get to resign from coaching, just like they can't resign from teaching 3rd grade, right? They're gonna do the duties they're assigned to do, but whatever, we let her resign. And she put her longtime assistant Jordan in to replace her because she hates the outgoing principal, so she wanted to show that she was the boss.
She pulls a Tom Osborne, is what she does.
I wouldn't challenge God like that. Sherry's still a teacher, but now that she's not coaching softball, she really doesn't care that much. She was all about the softball, so her performance in the classroom and in the clubhouse has steadily declined. All throughout last year, it's clear that she's already doing the math to see how fast she's going to be able to get her check from the retirement system. This year, she's clearly checked out. Her kids just do worksheets all day long, and if they've got questions, she tells them to, look in the book. She doesn't give them much instruction. Like you have a big staff meeting at the beginning of the year and you tell them, you've got a smart board, use it, or they've got one-on-one Chromebooks, use it. And from the back of the room in that in-service, Sherry says, I have an overhead projector, it works just fine. I don't need a computer or this snap face crap. So none of you have this, teacher. So you start to see that now she's polarizing other veterans, right? Look, if Sherry doesn't have to use technology, why am I using this?
When you're a 2nd-year principal, so she's feeling like she can run all over you too.
Yeah, and so you walk up to the boss and start talking to the superintendent about the fact that you've got concerns. Problem is the superintendent hasn't been doing this all that long, and the superintendent's kind of a little bit leery and says, if you try to move her along, she'll just fight. So just make sure you've got your ducks in a row so that we don't look bad in front of the board. Based on what you've heard today at this webinar, you're like, you know what? I need to go and look at everything else she's got in the file. Here's what you find. In her evaluation last year, you said, you're very popular, but remember, you must challenge all students. Quick footnote. See how this was written in the 3rd person? That is very typical. That is not what we like. I would prefer you to say, you are one of our most popular teachers, but you must remember to challenge. But what is written here on the slide is what we see a lot of the time.
And really what you're trying to say, that you're a 1st-year principal, right? And Sherry's been there for 30-some years. What you're saying is stop being the worksheet teacher.
Yeah.
But you haven't said stop being the worksheet teacher.
Yeah, exactly. She also cursed at umpires multiple times during softball games. She got ejected twice. Again, I will tell you, just isolating for a second the coaching side, we do have a professional practices complaint pending right now against a coach alleging that he cursed at the students. I called over to the department and said, hey, is it unprofessional for a coach to curse at the students? And the attorney that I was talking to on the phone said, oh yeah, you're effing right, it is. So telling your coaches not to cuss is a good thing. 4 years ago, before you were there, she yelled at the principal/activities director because they canceled the game and called him Charmin Soft in front of the team. That would make her coach of the year in Steve's book. But about 3 years ago, she's not keeping her grade book up. She doesn't like Power School. And so there's a bunch of stuff in the file where she's been emailed or it's been documented that we have to tell her to update her grades.
She's got every red grade book going back to the 1st year. The ones with the red cover.
Yeah. But the teacher,
hypothetically,
but the parents don't like that. The parents, all these helicopter parents, they're in Power School every day, and so they're freaking out that their kid's math grade is not updated. Your predecessor in his last semester did a memorandum to the file where he talked about a conversation he'd had with her, where he basically confirms that he has the same concerns that you have. She's got to stay engaged. She has to do more actual instruction. And she says, worksheets start with work. And if you're a parent and you want to know the grades, they can call me. Everybody knows my number. They don't need to look at this Power School nonsense. That's stupid. But notice it's a memo to the file. It doesn't show that she's ever seen this memo or that that he actually conferred with her about the content.
Which is the value of a written reprimand versus a memo to the file if you're really thinking through it.
I hate me memo to the file. I want everything to be given to the teacher so that we can use it. So what do you do? Here's some of the stuff that we would do if you called. I would say send me everything. And then the principal says, well, I'll send you my evaluations. No, you don't understand. I want everything. Going back to the time that Jesus was a little boy, I want it all. Because you can start to see things, right? What you're paying us to do is to assess whether we've got it, right? And so giving us just pieces and parts is not enough. Then 9 times out of 10, after we say send us the entire personnel file and you send us a bunch of stuff, we call back and say, no, send me everything. And so what I want, I kind of feel like I have the entire file. When you've included stuff like leave requests and their letters of recommendation, I don't need that, but I want everything that goes along with it. All the emails, all the evaluations, even the ones that were handwritten by, somebody that was there 20 years before you even were born.
And we're going to ask you to review all of Sherry's emails. Yep. Because somebody like this that will say that in the middle of a meeting, imagine what they'd say in an email.
There is potentially such wonderful stuff in emails.
We're giving Karen plenty of time here before we're done to talk about the Robinson case, because it is a perfect example of what a case looks like before the email search and what it looks like after the email search.
Well, we had not the Robinson case, a different case where we looked at the teacher's emails, like we hadn't gotten around to it till right before the hearing. And the teacher's Gmail, she had her email here, and you know how you can run folders down the side. So there's a folder for math class and whatever. And then there's a folder called bullshit. And in that folder are all the emails from her superintendent telling her stop being a bad teacher. And she's labeled them bullshit and put them in a folder labeled bullshit. Oh my God, that was the most fun. Awesome. It was awesome. So yeah, look at everything. You just never know what you're going to find when you kick that rock over. So after we've reviewed everything, here are the elements we're going to consider to see if you have a legally sufficient case. First off, have we evaluated her pursuant to our policy? Now, let's say, what's she, a 20-year vet, 21-year vet? Let's say the principal 25 years ago dropped the ball and did not get 2 evaluations in when she was a probationary teacher. That does not mean she has super tenure, but we need to know that. We need to own that. And everything that you've done, we need to make sure has complied with the board's policy.
So real quickly, maybe you're going to hit on this, sorry, but there is no once each semester, right? That how you evaluate tenured staff members is done pursuant to policy. There's no statutory requirement other than to remediate them, but yes.
And one of the things that we see in policies is, I'm looking at a text that came in while I'm talking. So one of the things we see in policies is, I like it if the board says every certificated staff member must be evaluated once each year, but some of your policies don't do that. Some of your policies have these weird evolving stage or improvement phase or whatever, so that basically a teacher only gets a formal evaluation once every 3 years, whatever. But you need to read your policy and see what that requirement is. And then make sure that you're not assuming that your policy says what your last school did. Oh, there it is. Some are once every year, some are once every 3 years, some have some kind of weird combination of the two. We would check with, when you send us your evaluation policies, we would check to make sure you're evaluating complied with it. But then I also would probably email the NDE lady that does your evaluations and have her send us over what's on file. And we would go back for all the years that have relevant evidence to make sure that it's been done according to Hoyle. The other thing that we look at, the other thing we ask for you to send us the entire file, is that teachers are required by statute to demonstrate professional growth every 6 years. And so I want to make sure that she's done that, because if she hasn't, we'll throw that into the mix and make that one of the reasons we're going to take action.
We had a quick question regarding the matter must be confidential until the hearing. What if you have a board member who likes to talk in public? Hypothetically, not that happens all the time.
So this is why we don't tell board members. We would not tell a board member Sherry's in the process of getting let go. Even after Sherry has requested a hearing, or if we're back on Mandy, if Mandy has requested a hearing, we don't tell the board that it's Mandy until after Mandy has requested a hearing, and then it becomes public.
So then the follow-up to that, can anything happen to that board member? If they've made it public, then they technically have violated the statute, which says we're required to keep it confidential until the hearing. But
we've not gotten a ruling from the court about what the consequence is. My fear is they're going to say you violated the teacher's due process. You cannot now renew, terminate, cancel that employment. That's the real risk.
I love you all. I just got a text about an urgent thing, so I've got to step out, but Bobby's going to take over this section of the slides. So love you, and I'll be back in a second.
Okay, so the difference, basically, let's say that you've gotten to the point where, all right, we've gone through it. We think there's a legally sufficient case. So now at what point when you start to prepare for, okay, we could have a personnel case here if I give notice of termination, how do we process that? So by and large, the process you're going to use for a termination, right? If you remember from the beginning, that's the only thing you can do other than cancellation to end a tenured teacher's contract. So we're considering giving notice of termination. It's the same as the cancellation process that Steve covered with a few differences. Number one, whereas cancellation can be delivered anytime, right? Let's say that something bad happens on April 16th. You can no longer terminate Sherry's contract, but you could cancel it. So what we're talking about here is similar to the non-renewal process. If you're going to terminate the contract effective at the end of the current year, that has to be provided by April 15th. And for reasons that I've never really understood, the just cause standard for cancellation, right? You'll hear Karen talk about them as the 7 deadly sins, is actually different than the legal standard you need for just cause to terminate a teacher's contract. So cancellation and termination are slightly different, and here's really how they differ. You'll notice that most of it is the same, but the thing that we always put in the contract about other conduct which interferes substantially with the continued performance, technically that's not in the cancellation statute, but it is in the termination statute for just cause. So there are a few differences. Make sure that when you're when we're working through the case with you, obviously this is what we talk about. When we list the reasons in the notice letter, we have to make sure to talk about them just slightly differently. Because in most of these cases, you're going to argue that some of this conduct interferes with her continued performance of her duties.